Have you ever felt the world whisper your name? Not in a sound you could hear with your ears, but in a feeling that settles in the bones, a certainty that arrives without explanation, a coincidence so perfectly timed it feels less like chance and more like a secret handshake from the universe itself. You are walking down a street you've walked 100 times, your mind cluttered with the arithmetic of living. What you need to do, what you should have said, the quiet anxieties that form the background hum of a modern life. When something pulls you from the noise. A word graffitied on a wall. Not just any word, but a name, a concept, a fragment of a thought that has been circling in your own mind for days, as if the brick and mortar decided to give form to your most private preoccupations. Or maybe it's a song drifting from an open car window, the lyrics articulating the very emotion you've been struggling to name, the melody a key that unlocks a chamber in your heart you thought was sealed shut. These moments are like cracks in the ordinary, brief apertures through which a stranger, more meaningful light shines through. Most of us, when we experience them, feel a quickening, a jolt of something that feels suspiciously like magic. And then, just as quickly, we shut it down. We become the prosecutors of our own experience, cross-examining the feeling with the cold, hard facts of logic. It's just a coincidence, we say. The mind is a pattern-making machine. It's just connecting dots that aren't really there. It's statistically inevitable, given the billions of events happening every second. We dismiss the whisper because admitting we heard it would force a terrifying rearrangement of our entire reality. It would mean that the world is not the inert, mechanical thing we were taught it was. It would mean that we are not alone in here, behind our eyes, separate from everything else. It would mean that there is a conversation happening, and we are expected to participate. This reflexive dismissal is a form of self-protection. To acknowledge that there might be intention behind the curtain of everyday life is to surrender a certain kind of control. It is to admit that we are part of something vast and intelligent whose motives we cannot fully comprehend. This is a deeply uncomfortable proposition for a consciousness built on the need to predict, to manage, and to dominate its environment. But what if this act of self-protection is actually the very thing that cages us? What if the control we cling to is an illusion, and the real power lies in learning to let go, to listen, to trust the current of a river we can sense but not see? Carl Jung, the profound and often controversial explorer of the human psyche, dedicated a significant part of his life to investigating these cracks in reality. He did not dismiss them. Instead, he leaned in. He listened with the patience of a scholar and the soul of a poet. He collected these stories of impossible timing and meaningful collision like rare jewels, studying them not as errors in the matrix, but as clues to its true nature. He gave them a name that has since echoed through decades, a word that carries the weight of mystery: synchronicity. For Jung, these were not mere coincidences. They were a causal connecting principles, events linked not by a chain of cause and effect, but by the glue of meaning. It is as if the external world and our internal world, the landscape of our psyche, are two sides of the same coin, and every so often the coin flips in the air, and for a breathtaking instant we see both sides at once. Jung observed that these synchronicities are not random. They cluster around moments of intensity, periods of transition and transformation. They multiply when we are on the cusp of a great change, a breakup, a career shift, a spiritual awakening, a loss that forces a reckoning. It is when the old structure of our life begins to crumble that these signs appear with greater frequency, like lanterns being lit along a path we have not yet chosen, illuminating the first few steps into the unknown. He noticed that the closer an individual moved toward what he called individuation, the process of becoming the whole, integrated and authentic self that one is destined to be, the more the universe seemed to lean in and participate. The whispers became more frequent, the signs more clear. It was as if reality itself was conspiring to aid in our own becoming. This implies a relationship between the soul and the world that our modern materialistic paradigm violently rejects. We live in a culture that worships at the altar of the quantifiable. Our education systems, our economic models, our very sense of what is real is built upon a foundation of measurement. If you cannot measure it, test it, replicate it in a sterile laboratory under controlled conditions, then it is not valid knowledge. It is relegated to the dusty attic of human experience, superstition, fantasy, delusion. We are taught from a very young age to trust the map instead of the territory. We learn to navigate our lives using external data points, grades, salaries, social media likes, while the internal compass, the one that operates on intuition, feeling, and symbolic knowing, is dismissed as unreliable, childish, even dangerous. So, we learn to silence it. We ignore the gut feeling that tells us not to get on that plane. We rationalize away the dream that leaves us waking in a cold sweat with a message we can decipher. We laugh off the recurring number, the unexpected encounter, the book that falls off the shelf as mere quirks of fate. We call it chance, when deep down, in a place beyond the reach of reason, it feels like anything but. This self-imposed deafness is the great tragedy of our time. We have become a species estranged from its own deepest language. We are receiving love letters from the universe and we're throwing them in the fire, unopened, because the handwriting is unfamiliar. This video, these words you are hearing right now, are an invitation to end that estrangement. This is a call to take off the blindfold of a rationality that has become a prison. It is a proposal to consider a possibility that is both frightening and liberating, that your life is not a random collision of particles, but a story being co-authored by your soul and the world. That there is a dialogue happening all around you, all the time, and you are meant to be a part of it. Life doesn't shout its instructions. It communicates in a whisper, through the symbolic, the intuitive, the synchronistic, and you need to learn to listen. If you have ever felt that a coincidence was too significant, too perfectly tailored to your inner state, to be random, if you have ever had the sensation that the universe was, for a moment, conspiring in your favor, or if the simple fact that you clicked on this video at this exact moment in your life feels like more than just an algorithmic suggestion, then you have already felt the pull, you have already heard the whisper. Carl Jung believed that synchronicity was one of the primary ways, the collective unconscious, that vast, ancient, shared reservoir of human experience and archetypal knowledge that lies beneath our personal minds, manifests in our lives. It is the means by which this deeper intelligence breaks through the surface noise of our ego-driven existence to guide us, to warn us, to reassure us. And perhaps your presence here right now is not an accident. Perhaps it is the latest nudge, the first step in learning the grammar of this hidden language, because the dialogue is already underway. The signs are all around you. The only question that remains is the most important one. Will you choose to participate? Will you answer? To truly understand the radical nature of this idea, we must appreciate that Jung was not a mystic in the traditional sense. He was a scientist of the soul. He was a man who respected the power of reason but recognized its severe limitations. He understood that the human psyche could not be fully explained by the Cartesian logic that had dominated Western thought for centuries. The mind was not just a computer, it was also a forest, an ocean, a cosmos. He ventured into territories that academic psychology of his time deemed unscientific: dreams, mythology, alchemy, fairy tales, and religious symbolism. He did not see these as primitive fantasies, but as the native language of the unconscious, the way the psyche speaks to itself about truths that are too deep for everyday language. It was in these uncharted waters that he began to map the phenomenon of synchronicity. He realized that our reality operates on at least two fundamental principles. The first is causality, the world we all know and take for granted. This is the world of linear progression. You plant a seed, cause, and with water and sun, it grows into a plant, effect. You work hard, cause, and you achieve success, effect. This is the logic of the clockwork universe, predictable, mechanical, and reassuring. But Jung proposed a second parallel principle, synchronicity. This is the world of meaning. Here, events are connected not by a chain of causes, but by their significance. The connection is not linear, it is thematic, symbolic, meaningful. It's not about why something happened, but what it means that it happened at this specific moment, in this specific way, to you. Imagine two clocks both keeping perfect time, but neither is causing the other to tick. They are simply in sync, aligned by a deeper, shared principle. Synchronicity suggests that our inner psychological state and outer events can align in the same way, connected by a shared meaning that transcends cause and effect. Jung was meticulous in his observations. He wasn't interested in vague feelings or generalities. He documented specific startling cases from his clinical practice. The most famous, which we've touched on, is the case of the scarab. He was treating a highly rational, intellectually defended woman. Her therapy was stuck. She was trapped behind a wall of her own skepticism, unable to access the emotional material that needed to surface. During one session, she was recounting a dream from the previous night, a dream in which she was given a golden scarab, a potent symbol of rebirth and transformation in ancient Egyptian mythology. As she was describing this beautiful symbolic object, Jung heard a gentle tapping at the window behind him. He turned, opened the window, and there, trying to get into the dark room, was a rose-chafer beetle, an insect whose golden-green carapace was a stunning living reflection of the Egyptian scarab. It was a species uncommon to that area. Jung caught the insect, handed it to his patient, and said, "Here is your scarab." The effect was electric. The sheer improbability of the event, the precise synchronization of her inner dream world and the outer, material world, shattered her rational defenses. The wall came down. The synchronicity acted as a key, unlocking a depth of feeling and insight that talk alone could not reach. For Jung, this was not a paranormal event. It was a psychological one of the highest order. It demonstrated that the psyche does not exist in a vacuum, sealed inside our skulls. It is in constant dynamic relationship with the world outside. At times of impasse, when the conscious mind is stuck, the unconscious can and does orchestrate events in the external world to break the logjam. It speaks through reality itself. This perspective challenges the very bedrock of our materialist worldview. The science that grew from the Enlightenment is based on a model of predictability, repetition, and control. It demands that phenomena be isolatable, measurable, and reproducible. Synchronicity defies all these criteria. It is unique, subjective, and utterly unrepeatable. You cannot design an experiment to reliably produce a meaningful coincidence. It happens on its own terms, in its own time. This is why the establishment, scientific and psychological, has such a difficult time with it. It cannot be captured in a net of data. But its impact is undeniable. An event that cannot be reproduced in a lab can nonetheless transform a human life forever. Which then is more real? The reproducible data point or the life-altering experience? Jung's collaboration with the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Wolfgang Pauli was crucial here. Pauli, one of the pioneers of quantum mechanics, was himself deeply interested in the irrational, and he suffered from a series of disturbing synchronicities that would plague his experiments. Equipment would mysteriously fail when he was nearby, a phenomenon jokingly called the Pauli effect. Together, Jung and Pauli began to explore the idea that the principles they were discovering in the human psyche might have correlates in the behavior of the physical world. Quantum physics had already revealed a universe that was far stranger and more interconnected than classical physics could have imagined, a world of probability waves, where particles could be entangled over vast distances, instantly influencing each other. While Jung was careful not to force a direct analogy, this dialogue with physics supported his growing conviction that the universe might not be just a collection of dumb matter, but a unified reality where mind and matter, meaning and mechanism, were two aspects of a single underlying substance. This leads us to a breathtaking idea. What if the universe is not just made of matter and energy, but is also structured by meaning? What if meaning is not something we humans project onto an indifferent cosmos, but is a fundamental feature of the cosmos itself, as real as gravity or light? And what if synchronicity is the mechanism by which this inherent meaning becomes visible to us? It would mean that we are not accidental tourists in a meaningless universe. We are participants in a cosmic drama of significance. We are not separate observers, but integral elements of a living, responsive, and intelligent whole. This is not a call to abandon science, but to expand its definition to include the full spectrum of human experience, not just the parts that are easy to measure. The calls, these whispers from the whole, become most insistent when we are on the verge of a fundamental change. There are seasons in a human life when the ground grows soft. The identity you have carefully constructed, the job title, the social role, the story you tell yourself about who you are, begins to feel like a suit of clothes that no longer fits. A deep, nameless restlessness sets in. Relationships that once provided comfort now feel like constraints. The things you worked so hard to achieve suddenly taste of ash. This is not depression, though it can be mistaken for it. This is what the ancients called a nigredo, a dark night of the soul, a necessary dissolution that precedes a rebirth. It is at these fragile, vulnerable thresholds that synchronicities swarm. They are the universe's way of saying, you are on the right track even though it feels like you're falling apart. The path ahead is not clear, but the signs are there, assuring you that you are not lost, you are in transition. Jung saw that the collective unconscious, this deep, shared psychic ocean, actively conspires with external reality to guide us toward our own completion. It does not use the language of the boardroom or the textbook. It speaks the mother tongue of the soul, the language of symbols, animals, numbers, dreams, and chance encounters. Consider someone in the depths of such a crisis. They feel isolated, misunderstood, their inner world a chaos of conflicting emotions. One afternoon, overwhelmed, they decide to go for a drive with no destination. They end up in a part of town they never visit. They walk past a small, dusty bookstore and feel an inexplicable pull to go inside. They wander the aisles, not looking for anything in particular, until their hand rests on a book with a title that means nothing to them. They open it at random, and their eyes fall on a paragraph that describes their exact emotional state with an uncanny precision, offering a perspective they had never considered. A sense of peace washes over them. They are not alone. They have been understood. This is not a deus ex machina. The book did not solve their problems, but it provided a moment of profound recognition, a confirmation that they are part of a larger pattern. Something inside them was ready to receive a message, and the universe, in its infinite and mysterious wisdom, delivered it. These moments are calls to attention. They are invitations to wake up, to pay attention, to reconnect with a truth that lies deeper than the day-to-day drama of our lives. But we have been rigorously trained for deafness. Our conditioning for disconnection begins almost at birth. Our educational system is a factory designed to produce efficient workers, not whole human beings. We are taught to value external achievement over internal wisdom. We are rewarded for memorizing facts and punished for daydreaming. We learn that there is one right answer, and it's in the back of the book. The imagination is sidelined as a leisure activity. Intuition is dismissed as feminine nonsense. The symbolic, metaphorical way of knowing, the very language the soul uses, is systematically starved. We are taught to use our minds as sharp, analytical tools for cutting the world into manageable pieces. But we are never taught to use our minds as a sensitive membrane for feeling the currents of meaning that flow through the world. We become experts in the map, but we lose the ability to feel the texture of the territory. The result is a profound existential loneliness. We feel cut off, adrift in a universe that seems cold and indifferent because we have severed the very channels through which we could feel its warmth and intelligence. We are like radios that have forgotten how to tune to the station that plays the music of meaning. Have you ever had a powerful gut feeling that you should not take a certain flight or trust a certain person, and you ignored it only to have your worst fears confirmed? Have you ever felt a sudden, compelling urge to call an old friend and discovered they were in desperate need of that contact? Have you ever had a dream that felt more real than waking life, carrying a message you couldn't ignore? These are the stirrings of your innate navigation system. Every time you rationalize them away, you are sanding down the delicate instruments of your own soul. You are choosing the map, which is always outdated and incomplete, over the direct experience of the terrain. This self-betrayal is the source of much of our modern anxiety and emptiness. We are living a life that is out of sync with our own essence. We are following a script written by society, while our soul is trying to hand us a different, more authentic one. The constant low-grade depression, the feeling of, is this all there is? The aimless scrolling through digital feeds, these are the symptoms of a soul that is being ignored. It is trying to get your attention through the only means it has left, a persistent, nagging sense of dissatisfaction. Yet even the most hardened skeptic, the most committed materialist, is not immune to the power of a true synchronicity. When faced with an event of such stunning improbability and personal relevance that it defies all logical explanation, something stirs within them. A shiver runs down the spine. The hair on the arm stands up. The body, in its ancient wisdom, recognizes the signal before the mind can censor it. It's a fleeting moment of remembrance, a glimpse of what it feels like to be in a living, breathing, meaningful relationship with existence. It's a hint that the world is far more mysterious and alive than we have been led to believe. So what becomes of a life when one decides to stop ignoring the whispers? When one chooses, with conscious courage, to begin listening and, more importantly, to begin responding? It does not lead to a life of passive waiting for miracles. This is a critical misunderstanding. Following synchronicities is not about outsourcing your agency to the universe. It is about entering into an active, dynamic collaboration with it. The people who learn to do this live with a different quality of attention. They are not passive. They are profoundly responsive. They move through the world with a kind of fluid grace. While others are frantically trying to paddle against the current, they have learned to sense the current and flow with it. This does not mean their lives are free of difficulty. Often the path illuminated by synchronicity leads directly into the heart of a challenge. It might ask you to leave a secure job, end a comfortable but dead relationship, confront a deep-seated fear, or make a leap of faith into the unknown. The guidance is not about avoiding suffering. It is about embracing the kind of suffering that is meaningful, the kind that leads to growth. A life lived in tune with synchronicity is not necessarily easier, but it is infinitely more meaningful. Even hardship is transfigured. A loss is not just a pain. It is a necessary clearing away of the old to make space for the new. A failure is not an end. It is a redirection. An unexpected encounter is not just luck. It is a rendezvous with a piece of your own destiny. Jung wrote that, "Whoever looks outside dreams. Whoever looks inside awakes. Synchronicities are the bridge between the outer and the inner. They are the points where the dream of the outer world and the awakening of the inner world meet. When you cross this bridge, your life ceases to be a problem to be solved and becomes a mystery to be lived. You begin to trust in an intelligence that cannot be proven but can be experienced. You start to see your life as a story that you are co-creating with a silent, invisible partner. And the most remarkable thing of all is that the more you engage with this process, the more it engages with you. It's a reciprocal relationship. When you start paying attention, the universe turns up the volume. When you take a small step in faith, based on a hunch or a sign, a door opens that you didn't know was there. It's as if the universe says, you're finally listening, let me show you more. The synchronicities become more complex, more profound, weaving an increasingly intricate tapestry of meaning around you. Life becomes a fascinating, ongoing conversation. Of course, the discerning mind must ask, how do I know the difference? How can I distinguish a true synchronicity, a genuine message from the depths, from a simple coincidence, or worse, from my own wishful thinking? The mind is a superb pattern-making engine, and it can easily string together random events and imbue them with desired meaning. This is the trap of superstition and magical thinking, and it is a real danger. Jung was very clear on this. Not every coincidence is a synchronicity. Seeing a black cat and believing it spells doom is superstition. Thinking that every time you see the number 1111, you are guaranteed a wish is a simplistic, ego-driven distortion. The key differentiator is the quality of the experience. A true synchronicity carries a distinct emotional charge. It is accompanied by a feeling of awe, of the numinous, of the uncanny. It feels significant. The coincidence is so specific, so improbably tailored to your inner state at that exact moment that it leaves you breathless. It has a revelatory quality. It doesn't just confirm what you already want to believe. It often reveals something you didn't know or challenges you to see something in a new way. The scarab incident is a perfect example. The patient did not want a scarab to appear. She wasn't wishing for it. It was the last thing her rational mind expected or desired. Its appearance was shocking, paradigm-shattering. That is the mark of a true synchronicity. It bypasses the ego and speaks directly to the self. It's not about getting what you want. It's about being shown what you need to see for your own growth. The context is also vital. Synchronicities cluster around periods of genuine psychological transformation, not around trivial desires. If you are deeply questioning the purpose of your life and you keep encountering the same symbol, an owl, a key, a specific word, in completely unrelated contexts, pay attention. If you are struggling with a moral dilemma and a stranger says something that cuts to the heart of it, listen. The resonance is the clue. Does the event vibrate with meaning for you in the core of your being? If it does, it is worthy of your attention. So, how does one begin to cultivate this sensitivity? How do you tune your internal radar to receive these signals more clearly? It begins, first and foremost, with a decision to slow down. The whisper of synchronicity is drowned out by the constant static of modern life. The notifications, the deadlines, the endless to-do lists. You cannot hear the subtle cues if you are always running. Create intentional spaces of silence in your day. Go for a walk without your phone. Sit in a room with no agenda. Practice mindfulness, not as a wellness technique, but as a way of clearing a channel for perception. The universe speaks in the gaps between thoughts. The second step is to cultivate symbolic literacy. We have forgotten how to read the world symbolically. Start paying attention to your dreams. Keep a journal by your bed and write them down upon waking. Before the logical mind can edit them, notice the animals that cross your path. What are their traditional symbolic meanings? Pay attention to numbers, words, and images that seem to recur. Look for patterns, not with a paranoid intensity, but with the curiosity of a detective solving a beautiful mystery. Read myths and fairy tales. They are the textbooks of the soul's journey, written in the language of symbol. The third and most crucial step is to trust. This is the leap of faith. It is the decision to take your own inner experience seriously. When you have a strong gut feeling, a hunch, an impulse that seems to come from nowhere, experiment with trusting it. Start with small things. Feel like you should take a different route home. Do it. Feel a sudden urge to call someone. Make the call. This is not about being reckless. It's about rebuilding a muscle of trust that has atrophied from disuse. You will not be right every time. Sometimes it will be just noise, but over time you will learn to distinguish the signal from the static. You will develop a feel for it, and finally, you must act. Noticing a synchronicity without responding to it is like receiving a roadmap and leaving it folded on the table. The guidance is offered, but the journey is yours to take. This is where courage comes in. Following a sign might mean having a difficult conversation, making a life-altering decision, or stepping into a complete unknown. It requires you to surrender the illusion of total control and place your trust in the intelligence of the process. This is the essence of what Jung called individuation, the courageous, lifelong process of becoming who you are truly meant to be, guided by the signs and symbols that the universe places in your path. This is not a path for the faint of heart. It is far easier to live a life planned according to external expectations, but the cost of that life is a soul-deep emptiness, a haunting sense of what might have been. The path of synchronicity, the path of listening and responding, is the path of a life lived in full color. Is a life where you're no longer a stranger in a strange land, but an active, participating citizen of a mysterious and meaningful cosmos. So I ask you again, with all the gravity this question deserves, are you listening? Is there a part of you, perhaps a part you've tried to ignore, that recognizes the truth in these words? The fact that you have stayed with this video, that you have listened this far, is itself a potential sign. Perhaps there are no accidents. Perhaps you clicked on this today because something in you is ready to wake up, ready to begin the conversation in earnest. Life has been calling you for a very long time. It calls you through the book a friend lends you for no reason. It calls you through the dream you can't shake upon waking. It calls you through the chance meeting that changes everything. It calls you through the strange, quiet feeling that there is more to your existence than what you are currently living. The call is there. It has always been there. The only question that remains, the only one that truly matters, is this: will you answer?